Welcome back to another episode of the Brooklyn Boardroom, where we go behind the curtain and off script with today's stakeholders and foot soldiers in media, tech, and entertainment. And today's focus of the day is going to be how to effectively launch and leverage content in your career in cable television. And we have the ultimate general heavyweight in cable, Miss Toni Judkins. Thank you for being here, Toni.
Thank you.
Yes. It's super excited to have you here because we know you're a real heavyweight in the street. You earned your street cred. I'm going to run through some of your credentials for the folks that are watching. So Toni used to run programming and production at TV One, but she also was distinguished as she was placed on the list of the most 100. Let me repeat that. She was placed on a list of the 100 of the most influential minorities in cable. She also gained distinction as one of the most powerful women in cable. And in addition to that, she's from
Jersey.
She's from Jersey, East Coaster. I gotta pull up on that one.
East Coast in the house.
All day, Toni. But the other thing too that people would never probably find this out is you're a classically trained person in the arts.
Yes, right? I'm a classically trained singer, mezzo-soprano. I play many instruments. I don't really play anymore, but as a kid, music has always been a part of my life, which was really great when I worked at VH1. Mm-hmm. Worked at VH1 and then TV One. I can only work at networks that end in one, apparently.
That's so good.
But so music has always been a huge love of my life. And since I was a little kid, and it's really been a big part of my career and has really helped me gain some, a lot of success in my career from the days of VH1 and then, shows like Unsung at TV One and all the other things I've done around music. So, yeah. Yeah,
well, Toni just real subtly referenced Unsung at TV One, but the reality is this. She helped create that show for that network, and that show ended up, obviously, for those who watch TV One, knows how big a part of that programming slate Unsung is. Mm-hmm. It really helped brand them as an organization. Mm-hmm. I love the show myself, and that's the basis for one of your NAACP awards was for Unsung.
Actually, both NAACP awards
were for Unsung.
Yep.
Wow, yeah. Incredible. So you're a stakeholder and you deserve to be here. So
thank you.
Thank you for joining me, and we're gonna just jump right in, okay? Sure. So one of the things that I wanted to help the audience understand is kind of how a cable network functions vis-a-vis their career as an executive, but also as vis-a-vis their plans as a content creator. Mm-hmm. And obviously one of the core elements of that are the functions that the people who bring in content play, and then the ones that help develop and curate content. So just describe for us, for the sake of the audience, this is under the rubric of understanding the fundamentals. What's the difference between like an acquisition executive vis-a-vis a development executive and a production executive vis-a-vis a programming executive?
Okay, so basically in the programming department, you have all the content that comes into the network that's created for the network and airs on the network is pretty much brought in and through and managed through the programming department. Okay. So, imagine if you have a new network and you don't have a lot of original programming. Say like TV One or any other network was at their launch. Well, you have to rely on the acquisitions. That's the content that you can go out into the marketplace and get and put on your network to help brand your network and also to just simply help fill your programming slate, help fill those 24 hours or 12 hours or 8 hours that's going to be looped either 3 times or 2 times if you're on a 12-hour schedule, or if you're on a 24-hour schedule, all the content. So an acquisition executive is the person that has the connections, knows where to get the programming, knows what programming to go after, makes the deals for them, and that person is basically usually working with the head of programming and the head of programming and the programming executive.
But before we go into I want to just point something out. So guys, for those of you who find yourselves in various content markets, whether it's overseas in MIP or whether it's local here in the States, I can't think of one at the moment, NAPI, you want to make sure you connect with the acquisition executives at these different markets because they're the ones empowered to acquire or do a deal for your content.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So from an outsider's point of view, the acquisition executive is the guy that you want to talk to if you have content. But now you're going to go on to explain.
And also that not only at things like MIP TV, and NAPI, there are other smaller events that go on, things like Hollywood Creative Forum.
Oh,
There are
yeah, that's
plenty of
right.
places that you can find people that are looking for content, and usually at a network, it is the acquisition executive, and that
Okay.
person, along with the original programming executive, they're all in the programming department, and that acquisition executive is getting content and procuring and curating content that reflects the overall programming strategy.
The brand of the
The
network.
Well, it's different than the brand.
Okay.
There is the brand, but then there's a strategy. But how are we going to execute and bring this brand forward? So
I
our
see.
strategy is, we're going to take a certain type of content and position it on the network in a certain way that puts forth a certain feeling and
I
certain
see.
viewing experience and a certain identity for
I
who we
see.
are. And usually, once you have your acquisitions, and I'll take a couple of networks as examples.
Okay.
Once you have your acquisitions, you can have. I'll give you two examples.
Okay.
Example for TNT and an example for AMC. And let's throw in FX for good effect. I'm
Okay.
going to go back several years.
Okay.
All three of those networks were networks that had a lot of movies on them,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
AMC had really, really great movies. TNT had great movies, and FX had great movies. So how does a viewer decide, well, what are these networks about? And why do I give my attention to AMC versus TNT versus FX?
Okay.
Well, when you get to the point where you have, you know, your slate is full and you just have movie after movie after movie, there's a certain types, right? So you'll notice that a lot of content on TNT kind of leaned toward Law and Order type content.
Yes.
A lot of content on
Procedurals.
FX was very, really edgy,
Yeah.
right? And
The
a lot of
Shield.
content on AMC was just really, really good quality content, right?
Okay.
That was where in the early 2000s you would see, after content had gone through premium and pay cable, it would come to basic cable, you would find it on AMC, you'd find it on FX. There would be some of the first places that you'd see The Matrix or any of the really really good looking content. And as those networks grew and they determined, okay, who are we going to be when we start launching our original content, further brand and differentiate ourselves, then those determinations are made based on what their overall program strategy is. So you go to TNT and you see that they're Law and Order. They acquire Law and Order. They start making original shows that are in their Law and Order space.
I see.
You take a look at an FX. They're very edgy. They acquire something. They have an original show called The Shield.
That's
Very
right.
edgy character, nip tuck edgy characters. People that basically building their original programming slate at that time and brand and strategy based on hostile personalities.
I see.
People who think that the rules don't apply to them. So all of their originals start to kind of reflect that. And that's the filter that they start creating from and they start developing from. And you look at AMC, and at that time, I think the president at the time was Chris Collier. And I hope I have his last name correct. What he had said at that time was, whatever we do in the original space, whatever it does, it has to be able to visually stand up against anything that we have in the library, be it The Matrix, be it The
Interesting.
Godfather, whatever is in this amazing slate of original of acquisitions that we have. When we venture into the original space, visually, storytelling standpoint, it's got to stand up to it. So they took some early overtures with something. They had a stunt called Broken Trails. They realized that a lot of their viewers were an older white male demographic. So they created a stunt called Broken Trails, and it did really well. And they saw that was the demographic that showed up for it. So what else would this viewing demographic like? Maybe they like something in the advertising space set back in the 50s and 60s.
Oh, I see where you're going.
And along comes Mad Men.
Oh, I see.
So you start looking from an acquisition standpoint, you put that content out there, you see what people respond to. That informs your decision and your direction as it relates to when you step into your original content space.
So would you say, as a takeaway for the content creators listening and the folks who have maybe a slate of programming they're shopping around, that, as you look at different potential buyers, networks, that may not have a large original programming slate, take a look at some of the library titles to get a sense as to the direction they're going in programming wise, and use that as a guide or as indicator
Right.
of how your programming may fit.
Yeah, so the individual content creator is not going to have access to ratings. They're not going to have access to, how that content, how various content
Performed.
performs on the
Yeah,
network. But what they can pay attention to is how often is that content
I
aired?
see.
What are they promoting on their website? What are they
I
promoting
see.
on the press? So if you start seeing a certain movie on over and over and over
You
again,
know,
then that's
it's
what's popular.
successful for
And
them.
it kind of, let's say for example, took in the African American space. If you were to look at a network, the African American network, and you see they have a lot of content or movies that relate to women in peril, right?
Hmm.
Then they have some content. They maybe have a little horror. Then they have some comedy. Well, if you see what they're doing, what they're programming the most of, then you get a sense of, well, that's what's working for them. So if you have something that is maybe a story about a woman in peril, then that may be the place for you to present that content. You may not want to bring your version of A Quiet Place or something
Got
like
it.
that.
Got it.
So while the content creator won't have access to how the individual programs on the network in terms of acquisitions perform, you can get some information about what they're programming.
Now, how does this now just taking a pivot over to development and production,
Hmm.
right? 'Cause we talked about programming and acquisition.
Hmm.
Development and production oftentimes, looks very similar, and the folks operating in those roles sometimes share the role, right?
Hmm.
Do both. But can you describe to us the distinction in that world and how that world
Yeah,
operates in
sure.
cable?
Here's development. We get the content, right, and we've decided we want to develop this out. We want to take a deeper dive. We want to invest in this. We want to really formulate and structure and mold this story, this project, to something that will work for the network.
And this is
And so
based on a script, probably a pilot
it
script,
can be
or
based on an idea. It can be based on a book. It can be based on a pilot script. It can be based on a lot of things. But the development team kind of gets that. They're kind of working on it in the programming kitchen, so to speak.
workshopping
Right,
it.
they're
Yeah.
making sure that if they have all the rights and they can, let's say it's a book.
Hmm.
Can we work with the content creators and make this into an entire season?
Got
Is
it.
is this a one-off? Is this in a season? Is it multiple seasons? Who are we going to get for this? So the development team puts it all together conceptually, uh, getting it prepared to go from script to screen.
Got it.
Once those decisions are made, be it to make a pilot or once the pilot is made or the season, you have to work with the production team. Those are the people that actually make it happen. So the development team is kind of the pre-programming, the pre-production aspect of
I
it.
see.
And the production aspect, okay, now we're actually going to go out into the field. We're going to produce it.
We need to
It's gonna-
execute.
going to execute. It's going to have to go to post. And those are different. Those are more kind of the money management and the production management. That's more of the money management, production management aspect of it. They do interface and work with the development team, but they're actually the executors.
Okay. Okay. Now, taking a step deeper into this, for those that are listening that are, beyond the entry level point of understanding the landscape and actually out here producing content on their own.
Mhm.
So, what would you say? How would you advise a digital content creator who's like successfully developed, produced, and distributed their own content, but they really want to scale up for acquisition by a cable network executive, or production, redevelop it for a cable network? What should they be thinking about as folks who came from digital all of a sudden find themselves now potentially with a project in cable TV, which means the budget is going to be like more than triple the size likely, and the number of people involved is going to be probably triple or quadruple the size of the team they initially started with? How should they be thinking and analyzing that approach?
They should be thinking. The first thing that I want to say is they should be thinking big. And what I mean by that, it's like going from the minor leagues to the major leagues. And what I mean by that is like, imagine if you have a short film, right? You think back to, and I'm totally dating myself here, but you think back to the movie and then series Soul Food, right? That all came from one scene. It was a scene that was shot. That content creator was able to get the ear of the right person. I think at that point it was maybe Tracy Evans was involved.
Okay.
And that became a movie.
I didn't realize
and it
that.
became a series on Showtime, but that began with the scene.
Wow.
So I think the content creators, if they're, from the beginning, try, and this is my philosophy for everything in life really, is see it from the end. What is your desired end result? Is it to make a short film, Is it for it to be a series? Is your project a movie, an episode? But see, whatever it is, see it from the end. And the bigger it is, and the more vast and expandable it is, the better chance that you have to have an extended lifetime of this particular product.
Okay.
So if you're someone that has, let's say you have a short film and you've got it into some festivals, maybe it's on YouTube or streaming service, and you're getting some traction, you're getting hits. How can you now build upon this and package it, so that you can take it to a larger network?
Okay.
And understand that what it took for you to create this project to get it to where it is, it's going to take twice, triple that. So you have to be open to all the different forces and opinions and attitudes that come into play with helping grow your project. It's like you would scale any other business.
I see.
Right? You got, you at one point, if you were a baker, you were cooking in your kitchen. Now you're in a commercial kitchen. Now you're in a restaurant. So you have to be thinking about how I can grow this. What do I need to make this bigger? Who do I need to have on my team so that I can package myself, my team, to best position us to walk into a network, to walk into a streaming platform, to get the bigger deal?
Well, let's unpack that a little bit, because I think, if I'm a content creator listening to what you're saying, I'm saying, okay, that makes a lot of sense. I need to rethink and reevaluate and prepare for, a much larger, more comprehensive approach to production and development. But what are the nuts and bolts that play into that? For example, and, I may be speaking out of turn, but I'm thinking, well, the show that I created for digital doesn't have any act breaks in it. For commercials, that maybe I need to be thinking about that as I redevelop this script for cable. Maybe it's a matter of, the theme isn't broad enough. Like the theme that I have is maybe too narrow because of the world that I'm in digital. Maybe I need to kind of come up with some broader topics and themes that will generate more attention and eyeballs.
Of course.
So what are some of those things?
There's structure, right? So if you want to consider, okay, how is this project structured? You want to make sure that, okay, there's act 1, there's act 2, there's, that you can create your scenes, create your story so that you should be thinking traditional television. So you should be looking at, okay, what would happen, whether it's going to air on Hulu with no commercials or Netflix with no commercials, or if it's going to air on a traditional cable channel. You should be following that structure, right?
I see. Okay.
You should be looking at how are these types of shows structured?
Okay.
And you should be thinking, okay, maybe it is too small. Maybe this concept is just kind of like one note or one beat. How do I make it bigger? Bring in more creatives. Look at content that is successful, that is similar to what you're working on, similar to what you're creating, and look at that as kind of a template, right? So you may have to come up with different storylines. You may have to add characters. You may have to, expand the concept all around.
Okay.
But those are things that when you're working with the network, you'll have some assistance.
You'll get support in that area.
You will get support, but you are better served to have as much of that thought out and a plan for that as possible before pursuing the avenue of taking it to a bigger platform.
And like you said, by referencing what's already been done successfully as a template. And then does that analysis vary depending on the genre and format, reality versus scripted, event-driven programming versus, documentary?
It does to some degree. It does. It varies. At the end of the day, though, it's all. If you're going to be taking something, let's work with, an hour-long program. If you're going to be taking something that is an hour-long episodic or an hour-long reality show, that you're going to be dealing with, 42 plus minutes,
yes.
Right? If it's HBO or something like that, it could be up to an hour, So your story has to be, you have to have enough content to sustain that and to fill that. But at the end of the day, you should be looking at where you want to go. Again, seeing it from the end. This is where I want to be. This is the type of content that I want. What does it look like over there? And does my story fit that? And if it doesn't, what do I need to do to get it into that realm?
Something you just said, which some people may not be paying attention or know this, but the reason why it would be 42 minutes instead of 50 or 60 commercial breaks. So you got to think about it in terms of they need to monetize this. So let me build this and design this story, allowing for the insertion of time for commercials. So for a half an hour programmer, for a half an hour program, how many minutes is typically allotted for commercials?
21 to 22. Some go to 23.
So about 8 minutes of
Sorry, content is 21 to 22 minutes, and therefore it's about 8 minutes of
commercial.
So you'd have 3 commercial breaks. Commercial breaks are typically in a half an hour show. You could have 3, possibly 4 commercial breaks. Your commercial breaks are typically about 4 minutes. You have national advertising, you have local advertising, and then there's probably 30 or 60 seconds available for promos on your network.
Wow.
So the first part of a commercial break could be a Honda commercial, something from Kraft, something from Verizon. Then you're gonna get, your local spot could be, Joe's Auto Body down the street, and then you're gonna see, hey, also coming up on our network, and the next week or so is gonna be the new episode of this. So again, national, local, and then you have promo, and you'll have that a couple of times for a half an hour show. For an hour show, you can have it between 4 and up to 6 times.
Wow.
And your content should be created so that your story seamlessly buttons up, or leaves a question or whatever it is, so that you can get to commercial break. You'll notice sometimes when you watch movies on cable television, those movies have now been formatted. There's what's called a format producer. That person takes that movie and breaks it down, a movie that's, let's say, 90 minutes, and breaks it down for a 2-hour block on a traditional cable channel. Sometimes, they'll go out on a scene, or a parts of a scene may be cut, and it's also that it is kind of retrofitted into a traditional linear cable format.
I see. So guys, the takeaway there is you need to adapt your product for the new platform and the nuances of that platform. In this case, commercials. Something else I'm sure is running through the minds of creators who, quote unquote, have relationships and they're trying to leverage them and make their product more accessible and exciting to the programming executive or the acquisition executive. And that's the idea of, let me bring in a brand or a sponsor.
Ah, yes.
So I'm assuming there's the pros and cons with that. Obviously, that could alienate opportunity, but that could also create opportunity. So what's your thoughts as a programming executive who ran a network? Well, how do you look at it when someone's coming in and say, hey, I have such and such company that's down to do this with me, and maybe put some skin in the game and put down a couple $1,000s on the content?
So that's always very tricky and has to be managed very carefully. A lot of content creators come in and they have access to companies, brands that want to offer to underwrite programming, a portion of their show. It could be a couple of thousand, it could be the entire thing, it could be hundreds of thousands, it could be anything.
Okay.
But it's not as easy as you would think it would be. So a content creator thinks, okay, I have, this company that wants to put money in here. So really to the network, you're thinking, well, it's not going to really cost you anything.
Free money. Why would you take it?
It's not going to really cost you anything to have this content created for your network. Well, that's not necessarily true, particularly, and I'm speaking about linear cable here. So say, for example, the main point is that you have to work with your advertising department. You can't walk in and say, this is going to be sponsored by so-and-so. Advertising department, that's their job to manage, to determine, who are the companies that are basically buying ad space on our network. So for example, you may come in with a product and it's going to be completely underwritten by Lexus.
Okay.
Well, if Ford or Mercedes are ad sponsors on your network, then that's a conflict.
That's right.
So that can't happen. And also, the other main thing is that, let's say, for example, a hair products company is going to give you're doing a show, you're going to give you some product, and they're also going to give you some underwriting dollars. Well, if they don't buy commercials on the network, they may not be allowed to participate in the program, because the ad sales department, their job is to bring in revenue.
That's right.
Bring in revenue for the network. So if businesses and brands don't wish to buy revenue, they won't be granted another opportunity or side door or backdoor opportunity to have their product in the program if they're not buying spots on the network.
That's
so
right.
all of that has to kind of be worked with the ad sales group. I got this a lot as an executive, and I got to tell you, it's not easy. It can cause a lot of conflict, but it can be worked out. One of the great things that you can do is you can work with your ad sales department, and this is more from the programming standpoint, the programmer standpoint, and the executive, the network executive, to work with the ad sales department as early in the process as possible, so that you know that, okay, we're going to, maybe their relationships that they have, or this is going to be, we're going to have a product placement from this product or that person. They kind of introduce that into the storytelling, introduce that into the process. This is not to say that it can't be done, but in the linear space, it has to be done in concert with the ad sales department. Now, in other platforms, it can be worked out with the platform, and maybe the producer can get the permission, can bring that to the table, and the platform signs off on it, because commercials won't be a part of are not a part of the equation at all.
Got it. Yeah, so I think the takeaway, guys, in this is that, as Toni pointed out, look, it could be a blessing and a curse, but if you don't manage it properly and get in front of it, right? So if you have an ad partner and you're shopping a project around, then make sure that the people up front know that there's somebody on board that's going to sponsor or subsidize the program, and what the expectation is. So you can begin to have those conversations with the executives, and you can manage that relationship and manage the development accordingly, and find out early on if it's not going to work, because it's going to be competitive with some other partner the network already has. And then in other cases, you may just decide, you know what, whoever the brand or organization that wants to be a part of your project, you may want to tell them, let's hold off until I get the project set up first, so that you can avoid that complication coming through the door and figure it out further down the road. Because it's end of the day, the network wants, if they like your product and they like your script or whatever it is, they want that first. The advertising from the development executive's point of view is secondary. I mean, they want to sell against it, but that's not their job. Their job is to find compelling material and bring it into.
Something else about this is very important. If let's say you're a content creator and you have a show and you have a brand that wants to be a part of your product, your goal is to make it as organic as possible. Complete your film, you complete your show, and you sell it to Netflix or Hulu or whatever, and you have brand sponsorship in there. As long as it doesn't look like a commercial, and as long as it makes sense to the story, then I don't think you're better to have a problem. Helps you get a better quality product. It helps you. I saw something over the weekend. I don't, probably when this airs, this will be an old story, but I noticed in one of my favorite shows is Silicon Valley.
Oh yeah.
And there was, all season long, there's been this Tesla storyline, right? And the way that it culminated in the season finale was a lot of fun. It made sense. It didn't look like a Tesla commercial. There was dialogue and a storyline that had been followed all season, and clearly Tesla had a big part of this, right? That is the way you want to make, and most of the times a product wouldn't be as that prominent. Certainly wouldn't be a continuing storyline, but this was pretty, it was a little over the top, and it was pretty significant, but it was a lot of fun.
It worked.
So again, if you're looking to have brands in your product, in your project, just make it as organic as possible. Make it make sense, and it should be secondary to the story.
Okay. So now we're going to shift over into examining the landscape, and we're going to get a little deeper and deal with some of the more challenging issues, right? So as an executive who's, navigated a lot of different paths in these organizations, how does the political landscape at a cable network impact creativity and storytelling for producers and content creators? Because because they don't know what's going on inside an organization, but obviously people like you do. And so how to manage that?
You mean the politics within the organization?
Within the organization, vis-a-vis the creators on the outside.
Well, there are going to be politics everywhere.
Yes, totally.
And they're going to be, and politics play, and I'll be completely honest with you. I haven't always, me in my career, I've suffered from, at various times in my career, I've suffered from the pitfalls of politics in an organization. I am a creative through and through. I had to learn to be an executive, and I continue to learn to be an executive, but I was a person that just wanted to create, just wanted to get the program done, just wanted to get it produced, and I really didn't pay a lot of attention to the politics. But the politics are there, and if you don't pay attention to the politics, it will cost you. you have to learn the political games. And what I would say is that, there's always someone everyone has an agenda. And that doesn't necessarily mean that that's a bad thing. Everyone has something that they're trying to achieve. Some people do it up front. Some people work within the system. Some people, are mavericks. Some people go rogue. But within all of that, there is a continuous political game being played. And you have to, whether or not you choose to play the game or not play the game, you can't ignore the fact that there is a game being played.
I
And
see.
if you ignore it, you ignore it to your peril.
I see.
Obviously, anyone would say try and stay out of the politics is possible, but you have to decide who you want to be as an executive. You want to decide who you want to be, what you want to achieve in your career, who you want to be along the path of that pursuit, and recognizing that politics will be a part of that, how to best participate in that political landscape.
But how do I, as a creator who's like, listen, I don't want to play these games, just order my show or just approve my budget. How do I become aware that this is happening? And how do I avoid it, like just making a mess of my project?
So, and this is going to sound, at the risk of sounding hippy dippy.
Okay.
There's what you want.
Mm-hmm.
There's what the network wants. There's what the organization wants. And all of those wants and needs have to be met.
And when you say the organization, you mean the corporate parent.
The corporate parent, right?
Got it.
So you want to produce a show.
Yeah.
And you want to get your show on the air.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, the network needs shows and they need ratings.
Yes.
Right? and they need shows that are successful, shows that rate well, content that works, and they need executives that are set up to go out into the marketplace and curate that content. And they need those executives to be there working for the organization, for the betterment of the company. And what those executives have to do is that they have to work for the company, then they have to turn around and work with the content creators, and they really have to straddle how to make all of those relationships work.
Okay.
How do I give my content creator, my producers, my producer partners what they need in order to create the best content? How do I make sure that this content gets the place that it needs to be and gets the light that it deserves, the support that it needs internally, and learn it? And I have to learn and operate in a way that it gets all the other parts of the company to be on the same page, support this endeavor. How do I work within my department? And it's not easy. I will be honest with you. In my career, I've been like a bull in the china shop sometime because I just wanted to get the thing done. And what I've learned is that if you can, and this is the part that may sound a little hippy dippy.
Okay.
You have to step back. You have to put yourself in the place of what's called the observer. Okay. Take yourself out of that story of what you want, what you're trying to achieve. Just step back. Think about it as a coach or someone who's, let's say, working with a boxer.
I see.
You're standing in the corner, or you're standing outside the ring.
Be objective.
Observe it. Take a beat. Take a moment. It's not about you.
I see.
What best serves the overall production? What best serves the department? What best serves the parent company? And then you also have to consider what best serves my production partner. But my main point is, if you can think that it's not about what you want, it's about the project. It's about the product.
It's bigger.
It's bigger. And take a step back and don't react. Let things play out. And many things will play out in their natural course. And you'll learn that what I've learned is that you don't have to respond and react to everything.
I see.
You don't have to. There's always going to be someone lobbying for something. Someone wanting to get something. Someone's trying to cut you over something. You don't have to respond and react to all of that.
So are you saying that the producers who kick and scream and yell and say, I need that actor, I need this, next episode to be ordered, they sometimes, become part of the problem? And
absolutely. Because they're outside. I believe at the end of the day, they just want to make the best product that they want. And a lot of producers feel that they don't get the support that they need from the networks. They feel that, okay, I've created this great show, but you guys put it on at a bad spot. in a bad program time, right? You didn't promote it. You didn't market it. Why are we airing on a Friday night at 9 o'clock when the HUD levels are extremely low? Why are you putting this up against, NBA finals, all these different things? And so they see that the thing that they've worked so hard for, they've put their time, their blood, sweat, and tears in it. It's not now we've gotten it to the finish line. It's your job to get it over. And they may look at it from their point of view and say that I wasn't given me and my product, we weren't given the best opportunity for success here. Well, that may be how they feel.
That could also be true,
and
too.
it could absolutely also be true.
Okay.
But then there's also another picture.
The other reality.
There's a bigger picture, okay? That there's their initiative, their corporate initiative, their network initiatives, and I believe that people are doing the best that they can. Now, having said that, back out here in the creative world, there are a lot of producers and that are, they can be challenging. That's a part of being a creative. I think there are certainly situations where creatives take that a little too far, and have to understand that we're all a team. You're creating a thing, but you're creating a thing for a bigger picture, and you have to work within that framework. You have to work within that structure. So, you can create the best show that a network has ever seen or a cable channel has ever seen, but if you're difficult, if you're challenging, if you can't get along with people, if you can't create what you say you create on time, on schedule, on budget,
there goes your credibility.
You not only have to stand to lose your credibility, you stand to lose your show.
Exactly.
So, you have to figure out a way to work with your creative partners to get the best placement, the best support, the best cast, budget, whatever you need, and that is a big political game.
And to deliver on time. So it sounds like to me, in essence, for the creators out there who are trying to maybe get a second season order or get their show picked up or whatever, they're working their way through the initial season of a show, you got to be part diplomat, part obviously passionate creator, and just also part like third party observer, just understanding the interplay of all of these dynamics. If you really want to leverage the opportunity to the best of your ability versus just being kind of, just sable rattling and screaming and because you're not getting it the way you want to get it, because people will look at that as you don't understand the bigger picture at play here. So let me ask you this, switching hats from the producer's point of view to an executive's point of view. So now you've managed through, all kind of like restructuring, shifting, influences, organizations, shifting teams, leadership. What are some of the lessons you learned as a seasoned executive in terms of leadership tactics, leadership principles, perspective on the business that you didn't have when you were early in your career?
Well, once you're fortunate enough to be invited into the boardroom,
there you go.
Everything changes, and it's all about the big picture. It's all about the big picture. And what I found, the biggest thing that I learned is that, when I first started, I was scrappy. I was a hustler. Like you said, I grew up on the East Coast. I grew up, in Newark, and there's a certain attitude when you're going for something that you have. There's a certain fight. There's a certain hustle. There's a certain grist that you have to yourself, and that can help you really move forward and move up quickly. But what I've discovered, and this is one of the most important things that I've learned, is that what got you to the boardroom, the skills, the tactics, the spirit, the point of view that got you to the boardroom are not necessarily the things that are going to keep you there.
I need to pull up on that. No, I should have dropped it on earlier because you said a lot of other things I just on gross in the conversation, but what got you there will not necessarily sustain you.
It will not necessarily sustain you. And when you get there, going back to this, it is a bigger picture. Imagine that when you're creative, that you're looking through a peephole, maybe of a key, and you can see just a little bit. But when you get into the room, you're like, whoa, look at the view. Look at what's at stake. When you're looking, you're thinking, let's say you're creative and you are responsible for 10 hours a year.
Okay.
Or 10 hours a quarter. Your job is, I got to get 10 hours a quarter produced. But if you're responsible for the entire slate, you're not only responsible for hundreds of hours, millions of dollars.
You're talking about you. in your former life. You know what I'm saying?
So when you get there, it's like, okay, I'm going to create this stuff, but if this one in marketing is not talking to me or doesn't believe in what we're doing, it's not going to get programmed, right? Or if my content creators are bringing in, content that's subpar, the operations department's going to kick it back and it's not going to get on air on time. Therefore, we're not going to deliver for ad sales. So you as an executive, you have to manage your team, and you also have to manage the counterparts in all the other different departments that are going to help your products shine, but also it's for the betterment of the entire network. So what you have to understand is that when you get to that place, and I do think that we all work hard and we deserve to be there.
Yeah.
But I always say it is a gift. Because we could all be digging ditches somewhere, right?
No, we get a chance disrespect to people who actually dig ditches for a living.
No disrespect to anyone who's digging ditches. But my point is that for people to be given an opportunity to do the thing that they're passionate about,
that's right,
what's in their heart, that what they're best at, when you get there, it's like a relationship. It has to be taken care of. It has to be nurtured. You have to give attention to it, and it has to be the place that you're in and the company that you're in has to be respected.
I see.
And what I've learned, and I can wholeheartedly say that the key to that, putting yourself second, and this is another pull-up. I hope it's...
Oh, yeah. No, drop it.
You have to seek out, discover, and celebrate the genius in everyone.
There it is. Seek out, discover, and celebrate the genius in everyone. Come to basically... like you said, putting yourself aside and honoring people, uplifting people, nurturing people, supporting people on your team or associated with your team that you may not even really like on a personal level. Yep. But this is how business gets done.
This is how business gets done because you want to be in the game. You want to be in the room. You want to be in the game. And this is where, the hard truth, you can be inside of a network, and that network can be in 100 million homes, or it could be a streaming service like Hulu or Amazon Prime or whatever, or any premium cable network like HBO or Stars or whatever. But they've been in it for decades, and yes, there are people coming up disrupting the industry, but you can either work on the outside or you can work on the inside. It's hard to get in.
That's right.
And when you get in, you want to stay in and do the best work that you can. Now, there may come a time, as the time came for me, where you're like, okay, I've done what I can do here. There's something else I'm intended to do. Let me take the leap of faith, go out into the world, believe in myself, pursue my dreams, discover what else I want to do. But I believe that I completely benefit from having that experience inside to take it out into the world. But if you're given the opportunity to be there, your job is to do the best work that you can do while you're there, and to do it as peacefully and respectfully as possible. And if you're able to do that, and going back to celebrating the genius in everyone, you'll be amazed at how much support and participation and opportunities you're given right there where you are.
Then you called it. No, you said it. I mean, the takeaway there is, listen, guys, if you guys are in leadership roles, you all win. You win if everyone wins on the team. You have to have that point of view. You can't be alienating people, and you can't be supporting one side and not another. So here's the thing. We have time for one last question. Sure. And this question is about being woke and surgical, but as it pertains to the Black and brown community. So how do these realities differ in terms of navigating as an executive or as a creator in this space for the Black and brown folks out there?
Well, I've been, for better or for worse, when we worked together back at Viacom, in the department that I was in, I was one of the few Black and brown people in the group. I mean, if there were 50 employees in our group, I was maybe one of 3. And what I remember from back in those days, and this is one of the reasons that I really kind of loved when I went to TV One, working for all African Americans.
Yeah.
But back in the days at Viacom and working in a space where there was one of few, it was very interesting to me that we would have these development meetings, right? And so we'd have the meetings where we'd come to the room. This was at the time when we actually still had magazines, right? And you'd bring in Billboard and Spin and everyone, People Magazine or whatever. And I had to bring that as well. But it was also assumed that as one of the few African Americans in the group, that I would bring in Vibe and The Source. And there is something to that's the adage that we've all heard, that you have to do more, you have to work harder. There is something to that,
Okay.
that more will be expected out of you. But I would offer up that there's another way to look at that. Not that you've been asked to do more, you've been given an opportunity to share more.
Perspective. I like that.
It's
I like
about-
that. Perspective. It's about perspective.
It's about perspective. So when you're not looking at it where, why do I have to come to the meeting and I have to always represent or whatever. Switch your perspective and think, I'm being able to share something that, but for me being in this room, may go unnoticed.
I love that.
I remember there was a time back early in my career where a movie came out, and the movie was Diary of a Mad Black Woman. And that movie, that opening weekend, did something like $25 or $30 million. My boss called me in and said, who is this Tyler Perry? How did this movie make this? Why don't I know about that? And there was an expectation where if I knew about that, you're the one that's supposed to be telling me about it.
Wow.
And that moment stayed with me. Like, there are people that aren't going to look for what else is out there. They're not going to, fully survey the terrain, the creative terrain. And this is the opportunity that I've been given. And I'm going to make the most out of that and not look at it as a burden, but look at it as something that I can share. Now that's on the creative side. Just kind of walking the halls and existing. It's different and it's not. And I say that being Black and brown can be as different and as difficult as you want it to be, or you don't.
Again, perspective.
It's all perspective.
How you see it.
It's all perspective. You go up, you show up, you be your best self, you be inviting and welcome, inclusive, and you shouldn't have a problem. Speak up when you need to speak up, fight when you need to fight respectfully, but understand that your experience might just be like, walking with a 5-pound weight at all times. Not everyone has it. You do.
Just be prepared for that.
Just be prepared for it.
Wow. Well, listen, on that note, we're going to wrap another episode of the Brooklyn Boardroom. Thank you again, Toni, for being here. You shared some really deep insights. I forgot to ask you, is there anything you want to promote or mention?
Oh,
yeah. Look out for?
So I am actually still pursuing my entrepreneurial pursuits, and I really am working on trying to get a couple of streaming services off the ground and really kind of focusing. I'm working on a film. I'll keep you posted about that.
Yes.
I can't reveal the name of it, but it's a biopic about a much beloved African American celebrity.
Okay.
Working on that, but aside from that, I'm really working on getting a couple of streaming services off. Streaming services are really dedicated toward helping people discover, build, and live the life of their dreams. So working in the transformational space, figuring out how to make that as compelling and as entertaining as possible, but really with a direct focus on working in the OTT space.
Wow. That sounds exciting. Well, listen, we're going to be on the lookout for the success I'm sure you're going to have in the streaming service and with your film. So, but until next time, guys, thank you for tuning into the Brooklyn Boardroom. Be sure to download us on iTunes and also potentially on Google Play. And you always can find me on social media at BK Boardroom. All right, deuces. See you again.